actually, as of about 3 weeks ago, I put solar on my third house. So I'm one house past where you agreed. So that was. I'm going to talk primarily about solar panels. I know Vincent mentioned the solar roof tiles. I priced the solar roof tiles on my own house and found that the price on new construction was about 50% higher than the panels. And of course on a replacement roof it's even more of an issue. So I didn't follow that path at all. I stuck strictly with the panels. So that's what I'm going to be talking about tonight. If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask them, but I'm going to kind of touch on the high points of things. What I hope to get out of this is that I hope all of you will at least understand not only how the solar system works, but also how you finance it and what you can expect out of it and whether that's even appropriate for your own house. There's really three important things with the solar system. One is the siting and how it will work with your house. Do you have the right roof angles? Do you have the right roof direction? Are there trees in the way? The second is what is your actual electrical use over the course of a year? And that's really what they're going to base the size of a system that you can be approved for. A lot of people think, hey, I'm going to put 100 panels on my roof and I'm going to make electricity and I'm going to sell it and get a whole lot of money. It doesn't work that way. You'll be sized for a solar system based on what you use over the course of a year, and that's it. You produce more than what you use, too bad you don't get any money back for it. And then the final thing, and I'm just going to mention that very briefly, is how you're going to pay for that system. A lot of people have seen the ads, free solar system. There's no such thing as a free lunch, people, no matter what they tell you. Talk briefly about the siting. Solar company comes in and talks to you. What they're going to look at is which way your roofs face, whether or not there's trees in the way. Keep in mind that a solar panel that faces due south is considered to be 100% efficient. If you have a roof that faces west or east, you lose about 20% efficiency. So you're somewhere around 80% of your maximum output. And that's really because the sun, of course, faces south for much longer in the day at a much higher angle than it does to the east and west, where it rises and respectively sets. As far as the roof angle goes, solar panels are most efficient when the roof is like that and the sun is up here shining directly down on it on a 90-degree angle. Flatter roof or a steeper roof, you're going to lose some efficiency. That's why sometimes you'll see houses with a flat roof where the piles are actually propped up on metal supports so they come closer to matching that angle of the sun. It'll still work with an angle different than 40 degrees, which is your optimum angle, but it won't be as efficient. Tree shading, my very first solar system that I put in, which was at this point about 7 or 8 years ago, I had to cut down probably half a dozen trees, but I was on a couple acres, it didn't bother me too much. But you may have one tree that you really love that happens to shade that main part of your roof. You're going to lose out. Either you won't be approved for the system or it won't be efficient enough to make it a worthwhile investment. Other things too that are important are how many hours of sunlight do you have. Of course, anywhere in this part of New Jersey that's pretty much all the same. You can't say that we live in a cloudy state where you have to get outside and push the clouds this way or that way to avoid the sun or to avoid the clouding of your panels. And I will point out to you that even on a cloudy day, I can go outside or in my garage and I can look at my inverter and see that instead of producing maybe 5 kilowatts per hour, I might be producing 1 or 1.5. But even on a cloudy day, the solar panels still work. Another thing too that's very important is just because you have solar panels on your roof, if there's a power failure, your power goes down just like everybody else's. You need that electricity to run your inverter, you need it to run your solar panels. You will not have power when the power goes out unless you also purchase a full battery backup system in addition to your panels. And that battery backup system is a pretty pricey thing for the rare occasion that we happen to have a power failure in this part of New Jersey. Now up in Vermont, where I go part of the year, it's another story. We have an annual extended power failure every Thanksgiving. So it might be worthwhile to do it. But down here, no, it isn't. Second thing I mentioned very briefly was what is your electrical use. If you look at your electric bill, you'll see a graph from Jersey Central Power and Light, Atlantic Electric, whoever you happen to buy from. It'll show you what your use is over the course of the year. And for the most part, you'll see January and February, and then you'll get into the summer months when you're running your air conditioning, and then the graph will go back down for November, December. But those numbers will be listed as the number of kilowatts you consume every month, and that is really what they will base your system on. Like I said, you don't want to put a system on that's going to produce too much power. You also don't want to not plan for something in the future. So if you're going to add a swimming pool, you need to factor that in too, because that pump and that filter system uses electricity as well. So kind of keep your long-term plans in mind too when you're talking to a solar company because you'll want to broach things like that to them. Let's see here, production. What do solar panels do? If you look at a house, some houses have 20 panels on them, some have 5, some have 75. Depends on how big the roof is, what your exposure is. But what are those panels doing up there? How much are they actually benefiting you? Right now you can buy a panel that ranges from an output of around 200 watts per panel to around 350 watts per panel. That's pretty much a normal range. You can get better or worse, but it's going to cost you a whole lot more, or it won't be worth the difference for the cheaper panels. Think about an electric light bulb, 60 watts worth of power. If you're running a 300 watt panel, it'll power 5 of those light bulbs based on the sun that's hitting it at that time. Now, the one good thing about New Jersey is that we have a system where if you produce excess electricity, you have a meter on the outside of your house that tells you how much of your power is going back to the power company. So if you produce more than what you're using at any given time, like at noon on a nice day, I've got a 5 kilowatt system on my roof, I might be producing close to that 5 kilowatts, and I might only be burning 2.5. If that's the case, the other 2.5 is being sold back to my power company to offset what I might use in the future. So I'll get a lower electric bill, or I might even show a credit at the end of the month if I've stored some of those kilowatt hours for times when I don't have nearly as much solar exposure. Because your solar panels are going to be a lot like your electric bill is. In the summer, when you got a lot of sun all day long, you're going to see a much higher production. In January, February, December, November, you're going to see a much lower production. Overall, if you have a 5 kilowatt system or any size system, you can expect about 1.2 times that amount in terms of the megawatts it'll produce every year. So a 5 kilowatt system produces about 6 megawatts. A megawatt is 1,000 kilowatts. So if you look at your electric bill shows you use, say, 7,000 kilowatts in a year. You might want to look for a system that's going to produce 6,000 or 7,000 kilowatts over the course of the year to offset that use. Next question is, what does the system cost? What does a solar system cost? When I put a system on my house 7 years ago, it was 28 panels. They were 200 watts apiece, which at that time was about as good as you could buy. And I will point out they're getting better all the time. That system was $45,000. The system I put on 3 weeks ago was 18 panels, 330 watts apiece. So it's a higher output than that big system was that I put on 7 years ago, and it cost about 40% as much. So prices have come down dramatically over the past several years, from $45,000 for a 5.6 kilowatt system down to $18,000 for a 6 kilowatt system. Huge, huge difference. The panels are producing much more electricity than they used to. You don't have to screw up your roof with too many panels. It looks ugly. And I've seen some ugly solar system installations, and I'm sure you folks have too. You know, you got panels here, there, and everywhere else. Think about your house when you do that. Think about what it's going to look like. The system cost right now is going to be somewhere around $950 to $1,500 per panel, depending on the wattage, depending on how difficult it is to put it on your roof or how easy. So if you're looking at an 18 panel system like what I just put up, it was $18,900 for a 330 watt panel system. It's a pretty good system for about $1,050 per panel. Not a bad price. Like I said, they've come way down. Now there's other advantages to that system. That's my money out of pocket as of right now. In March or April of next year, when I get my tax return, the federal government's going to give me back $6,000 of that money as a federal tax credit, which is a pretty good deal. Now I'm all of a sudden down to $12,900 for my cost of the entire solar system. In addition to that, remember the number I talked about just a few minutes ago, which was 1.2 megawatts per kilowatt of panel size. Over the course of the year, I'll produce about 6 to 7 to 8 items called SRECs. That's S-R-E-C-S. SREC stands for a Solar Renewable Energy Certificate. Every time I produce 1,000 kilowatts of electricity, I get a credit, shows up on my computer, comes from the state of New Jersey, that I can then sell on the open market and get actual cash back in my pocket. So if I produce, say, 6 of those a year, which is probably about the average for a 5 kilowatt system, I'm able to sell those 6 SRECs, and right now they are selling for about $190 a piece. So in addition to the savings on those 6 megawatts of electricity that I produced on my electric bill, I'm getting another roughly $1,000 to $1,100 back in a saleable item. So that $1,000 to $1,100, you can use that for whatever you want. You can offset your other electricity costs, you go out to dinner once a week, whatever you feel like doing, but it's money in your pocket. You sell it to somebody called an aggregator, he's buying from 1,000 other people in the state of New Jersey, and then he's selling the whole thing at one time, and you're getting the money for it. It's a great deal. So for my $11,000 or $12,000, I'm going to net out-of-pocket expenses. I'm getting that $1,000 worth of SRECs. I'm getting about $1,000 worth of electricity savings, so I'm getting $2,000 a year, half of which is tax-free because my electric bill is lower, for my investment of $12,000. You know what the bank will give you for $12,000 a year if you leave it sitting there? 120 bucks, yeah, if you're lucky. If you're lucky. So you're getting $2,000 instead of 120 bucks. It's not bad. Now, briefly, I mentioned before that there's companies out there saying, hey, get a no-cost solar system. There's a few drawbacks to the no-cost solar system, not the least of which is what happens when you sell your house. Whatever kind of deal you sign on to has to go to the person who buys the house from you. The no-cost solar system in general, and I don't know enough about the intricacies because I know there's some hybrid offers they have nowadays, but you're not getting the 30% federal tax credit, you're not getting the SRECs, and you're not getting all the electricity for free that you produce. Essentially what's happening is you're producing a certain number of kilowatt hours per year, you are now paying your solar company for those kilowatt hours, and their solar company is getting your SRECs, and they're getting your tax credit. So instead of paying 16 cents a kilowatt hour, which is about what Jersey Central Power and Light's going to charge you right now, maybe you're buying for 12 cents a kilowatt hour from your solar company. So they're making 3/4 of what the power company is. They're getting the SRECs, they're getting the tax credit. It's a home run for them, so no wonder they're offering the system to you for free. It is not a free system, despite what you may think. And like I said, whatever deal you sign is going to go on to when you sell your house to somebody else who may or may not want to take it. I can tell you for sure that if it's an owned system and they're looking at getting all those benefits from it, it's going to be a home run for you selling your house. But if you've leased it and somebody else has to then assume that lease, they're going to look at it long and hard and say, hey, you know, this is a liability. I got to knock a little bit of money off the sale price of the house. By the way, I will point out to you that there is rumors out there that Trump's new tax plan may be eliminating the 30% solar tax credit. We don't know yet for sure what's going to happen there, but my gut reaction is if it does happen, I have a feeling you'll probably see the prices of the solar systems drop. Probably not the whole 30%, but my guess is that the solar companies are going to come around and say, hey, all of a sudden we don't have this marketable product as we had before, let's knock the price down 15% or whatever we need to get things turning again. Either way, the system that I have on my own house right now, the one I put on 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, hits a break-even point this coming year sometime. That's not a bad return for your investment. There's a couple other energy considerations too. You know, everybody who owns a house, even if Vincent built it, and it was built 1.5 years ago, and it just met the requirements of the code at that time, now owns a dinosaur. We have a brand new International Energy Conservation Code. They required better windows, thicker walls, more insulation, low flow faucets. There's a lot of things that all of a sudden kicked in because you know what, people? Electricity is not out there forever, gas isn't out there forever, oil's not there forever, and nothing's going to cost 10 years from now what it costs right now. So if you're looking at building a house that can make you happy to live in and happy to retire in, you probably do whatever you can to get that house down and make it a manageable monthly expense. And there's a lot of things, as I said, that will pay off in the long run. The solar system is an active system. It produces electricity, it's sitting up on your roof. It's got a 25-year warranty once you install it, if you buy it from the right place. So it's a good deal, it takes care of itself. But there's other things you can do too that are equally worthwhile in terms of expense. I know I looked through your perspective on the Bayville project where you mentioned you're going to be doing things as far as making the homes more efficient, but there's about 2 or 3 different insulation systems now that are very worthwhile looking at. The code now requires a 6-inch thick exterior wall, or you can do a 4-inch wall with a layer of styrofoam over the outside of the house, which your builder will not want to do because it messes up wall thicknesses, it makes it hard to install windows. You'll want to go to a 6-inch wall. So you're going to get an R value of 19 for your insulation instead of 13. It's about 50% better than what it was 1.5 years ago before the new codes came into place. But there's other things as well. For instance, there's spray foam insulation. You've probably seen that, similar to building a refrigerator. They come in when your house is framed up, bring a truck in, mix up a bunch of solution in the back of the truck with hoses running your house, spray it inside the walls in between each of the studs. It fills up the cavity. It seals around the electrical wires. It seals around the back of ductwork. It cuts down on air infiltration tremendously. I've done this in my own house and found that it really paid off in terms of my heating costs. Because keep in mind that solar isn't helping me at all in the wintertime as far as my gas use goes. So my heating cost is what it is. But the house I just built with spray foam in the walls costs about half as much to heat each year as the house I just sold with 2x6 exterior walls and regular bat insulation. So the spray foam is really a worthwhile investment. Other things you may want to consider, if you really want to get highly involved with trying to build as efficient a house as possible, is you can build 2 stud walls next to each other where the studs are offset from each other, because you actually lose heat quicker through a wood stud than you do through the insulation between the studs. You can also consider things like dual flush toilets, which have the 2 buttons on top of the tank. You know why there's 2 separate buttons there. You can consider high efficiency cooling and heating equipment. A lot of that is required now by code, but you can even go beyond the minimum requirements. You can consider things like the low flow faucets. You can consider the size of your home heating, the size of the home itself, whether or not you zone the heating for different parts of the house that you may or may not use all the time. So there's a whole lot of things you can do that'll kick in along with your solar system in terms of saving money. None of the things I've mentioned are ridiculously priced. You know, there's a lot of publicity out there, people who are saying, well, my house is a zero energy house. But you know, if your house costs you $60,000 more than a typical house, and that $60,000 is costing you $2,500 a year in interest, you don't have a zero energy house. You have a house where you took the cost that would have been here and transferred it over there. So you need to be careful to examine things and find out what's a worthwhile expense and what isn't. I believe the solar panels are a truly worthwhile expense. I believe the other things I listed are a worthwhile expense. You can run numbers by Vincent when you go to have a house built, or whoever you talk to in the future. Any architect will be able to help you out as well. But there's a lot of ways out there to save money, and a lot of them are really worthwhile. And to not plan on it now for the future would really be foolish not to do. And that's about what I have to say.
So, thank you, Scott. That was great.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Which solar companies do you recommend or do you like that are out there? Because there's so many that.
The house I just did, which is, like I said, is a secondary home for me. I talked to Sunrun, I talked to Green Sun, and I talked to Trinity. I ended up giving the job to Trinity because they were about 25% cheaper than everybody else. And because also they did my previous house for me and I was happy with what they did. I was able to discuss with them how I wanted the panels to look on the roof and not have them, like I said, stuck all over the place. The only thing that's really irritating me right now is that we decided to reorganize the panels on the roof in terms of fitting around pipes and that sort of thing.
Right.
And I've been now waiting 5 weeks for a minor change in the permit from them, which they said, you know, it's taking 5 weeks for somebody to review a 3-minute change in a permit. But other than that, they did a nice job. They were careful. They cleaned up after themselves. So I'm pretty happy as far as the way that all worked. And like I said, that was about $1,050 a panel for a 330 watt panel, which is a good LG panel. There's also, by the way, one more thing I should mention that's lurking out there, and that is that there's a possibility they're going to start adding a tariff or a tax to foreign-made panels. And almost all the panels right now are foreign-made.
Yeah.
Don't know if it's going to happen. They were talking about it happening possibly as early as this month, but I haven't heard one way or the
I
other.
know some of the solar panels are getting shipped from like, different Asian countries. Italy's another one. And
Not just some, almost all of them.
almost all, yeah. And they're getting shipped over here, and then the components are being put together at one of the locations in Piscataway.
A lot of the solar companies right now are buying panels as fast as they can to stockpile them to avoid the tariff situation.
Okay.
Yes,
How are
sir.
the shingles? I
Yeah,
understand they're developing them. Are they workable yet?
Well,
Very
that's what
expensive.
I looked into. The numbers that I got for the shingles for my own house were between $40,000 and $50,000 versus $18,000 plus the cost of roofing the house for the panels that I put up there. So for $18,000 for the panels and about $4,000 for my roof shingles, I was around half the cost of the shingle system.
How about if you put panels on and you need a new roof? Do they come off easily, or
If,
what do you have to do?
if your roof is more than 10 years old, as a general rule, the solar panel companies are a little leery about working on top of it. I have not been through the situation yet where I've had to replace the roof, so I don't know, but I can tell you that the entire rack system and the panels in my house were put on in less than a day, so I'm sure that removing them and then moving and reinstalling them would not be an excessive manpower situation. The other thing too is the panels are a lot simpler to install. It's almost like they all just plug together nowadays, as opposed to having run wires and making special electrical connections. Everything is kind of preset, you just plug it together. There's special devices that they have now that let the wiring run through your roof to keep water from getting through, both the way that racks mount and the way the wiring does, so that the water will run around those as opposed to going through in your attic.
So the shingle one you're saying is pretty much double the cost compared to doing the solar panel, correct?
That's the numbers that I came up with,
Okay.
yes.
Now, is the shingle one, is that where you're replacing the whole roof with the shingle, or you're doing it in sections?
In my case, it was a brand new house.
Yeah.
So I would have either roofed it with the solar shingles or put the panels on, plus had the cost of installing a
Okay,
standard
got it,
roof.
okay, got it.
And Tesla, of course, is the primary
Right.
seller of solar shingles. What they do is they sell you a certain number of active shingles and a certain number of passive shingles.
Got it,
Based
okay.
on the size of your roof and your expected electrical use. And you, of course, install them based on the facing that's going to be shown there. And aside
Do
from
you
that,
get-
I don't know the first thing about how they all connect to each other.
Yeah, no, but I was wondering, when they explain it to you, do you get the same, like kilowatts with that,
No.
or, no, you don't?
You don't get the same production per square foot that you do out of a panel.
Ah, okay, so the solar panels are better then, in
The
regards to?
solar panels are better in terms of the production per square foot.
Okay,
But
okay.
keep in mind that solar panels typically don't cover, say, your entire south and west facing roof. They just cover whatever you decide to pay
Okay,
for.
got it. That's good to know.
Anybody else? Yes?
The solar shingles, are you talking about the ones that were developed by Dow?
By who?
They were
They were
originally,
developed by Dow
yes,
Chemical?
originally they were.
Originally.
They were the first ones out.
My father worked for Dow Chemical,
Mhm.
and they came out with one like quite a long time ago, and I just got an email from them saying that they sold, and I think it was to Tesla. Because they were
Tesla's had it for-
available out west for quite a long time, and they kept waiting for updates, and they started updating them.
I know
They
there's been,
actually looked like, they were like flat, like a roof shingle.
Yep. Yep, and they actually have a few different kinds right now. They have one that looks like terracotta tile.
Yeah.
There's a few different looks out there. But again, like I said, the price just didn't work for me in my situation. And, I did mention the drawback of leasing versus buying, but I will point out to you that if you don't have a penny in your pocket and you want to benefit as much as possible, then the leasing might be the way to go, because you're still going to knock your electric bill down by a quarter or so, or 25 or 30%, but you're not going to get any other benefits out of it. So it's not like it's a complete loss, but purchasing is a much, much better investment for you.
Thank you.
And I know, Vincent, I think you mentioned in one of your prospectuses that you were going to do the solar shingles. That's fine,
Okay.
but it's a matter of the price.
I think that we want to incorporate some aspect of solar, and we want to have the option